This week's scenario is Spread the Net from the 2017 Steamroller packet. This scenario does have the Killbox Artifice in effect, and scoring elements consist of one circular zone, which can be controlled by warrior units, warcasters, and warlocks, two rectangular zones, which can be controlled by warjacks, war beasts, battle engines, warcasters, and warlocks, and two flags, which can be controlled for 1 CP. Victory conditions consist of earning 5 more control points than your opponent or caster assassination.
Hey everyone, PolarBearCub here. So for my list today, I'm playing a Axis Inverter spam. Usually in this list, traditionally, there's a lot more, Galvanizers. There's a lot more Galvanizers, but for this one, I decided instead to put 2 TEPs in there. It's really because I love TEPs. I think they're a really solid model choice. So I have a ton of Galvanizers. I have one inverter in the back there, and really just with this list, my goal is to countercharge forward, get up, and take control of the board as soon as possible. With the Reflex Servitors, I should be able to blow a couple things up and take care of a lot of his units because he has a shit ton of units. Other than that, I don't have to worry too much about the shooting game because with all the servitors, I can shield guard a lot of it, and then also my TEPs are relatively safe against everything. So that's my stuff.
Hey everybody, Taodark here. So today I'm breaking out my Exulon list. This list doesn't normally get a lot of changes. It's pretty symmetrical, and it's a creation consisting of 2 Wreckers, 3 Overlord units, 2 max Mindbender, 1 min Mindbender, 2 max Slaver, 1 min Slaver, and then 2 Agitators. It's a very divided in half list. It has no direct weaknesses because it's got redundancy built into it, but it has a lot of scenario play in 2017. Between Exulon's feat, the beat back from Wreckers, there's a lot of ability for me to really kind of drive control of zones, and then the ability of me either just using TK or something like that to set up moments where I can destroy things that I need to in order to prevent my opponent from scoring. So I tend to leverage this list more as a ability to control scenarios. So a lot of times my deployment, even in this game, you'll see that I kind of split. I do very symmetrical. There's one element on each side of the table, and then I throw one in ambushing. Because honestly, ambushing slavers, though they may not get work done, really help to control scenario.
Just my AD really quick. I'm just setting up my Reflex Servitors and my other servitors, just make sure they're all out in the front line. Alright, so turn 1. So with this list, really, I just want to make sure my stuff is getting far enough up the board to where they can run, not get shot at, or really engage next turn, so that the following turn I can try to do as much damage as possible. So I really want to make sure I run my stuff out. So as you do see, I did bring up the TEP, and I dropped those servitors. They actually are not allowed to be dropped during a turn that they run. Has to be normal movement. I messed up on that, did not realize that. So that was my fault. I apologize, community. So now with this, really, I am just I'm starting to run out models. I did a very stupid thing. I had my I had my Corollary go in the back area there, so I wasn't able to run him the very first turn to really start off a really good chain. So he just had walked up, so it's a little less on my focus. Other than that, I put out Unstoppable Force, and that was really my turn.
Cephalyx turn 1. So my opponent hasn't necessarily shown me too terribly much. I get familiar with some of his stat lines, and then I start I'm gonna run forward. This may seem like kind of a why are you just running into everything, but I'm kind of looking at my opponent's list, and though Exulon is a very scenario control caster for me, and I really kind of feel that I'm gonna throw this cell up because he's got some shooting elements to his army. The bigger part that I'm looking at is I'm concerned about the armor that he has through all of the jack spam, and then the TEPs being able to just pick up whole units to units and a half of Drudges. From a list perspective, I feel like I'm at a list disadvantage in this scenario He has a lot of answers to my army in his list. From a scenario perspective, I feel like I have a more scenario dominant scenario or situation. So that's really what I'm going to play for. I'm going to block out the bottom area so that I'm not necessarily concerned about scoring the bottom square, his square. I'm just going to block it out so that I can put one of my agitators on my flag and score defensively on my flag. I'm going to push most of my game towards the top. That's my current plan right now. Obviously, I need to see, my opponent needs to show me more than just advance up. He didn't do it aggressively enough, nor did he necessarily show me which side of the table he's looking to play on. So I need for him to expose more of his hand for me to appropriately respond to him. I have no intentions of going after that circular zone. That is too large and too central to be easily contested by any number of galvanizers. So there's no, like, even though I have a crap ton of warrior units that could score in that zone, I'm never looking for an opportunity that's going to be able to. It's going to be way too easy to control. So I'm looking to deal with the outside areas.
Alright, so this turn I'm going to try to remove a lot of his stuff. My goal is with the TEP is to try to remove a bunch of his models, the Reflex Servitors charging up, destroying a bunch of things, and then really just trying to kill at least one of his beasts so that I can effectively take advantage over the field. Because if he just has a bunch of units on the field, I'm not as worried as with those beasts. Those beasts could really take out my TEPs. If I could take out those things, then honestly what will happen is I will have to not have to be as worried about my TEPs getting destroyed because they can just keep killing things. Kind of looking back on it, really two ways could have gone with this turn. Is either A, just focus on this beast like I'm going to plan on doing, or I could have just stayed back and just really focused on killing more of the units. With TEP, I could spread out a lot more shots. I could have given them more shots. They really don't have that high of an armor. It'd be dice -5, I believe. And then they're not that high of a defense. They're only defense 11, maybe 12. So it's not really the damage that would have worried me. I could have gotten more shots. I could have done 3 dice of damage with 4 shots. Just killed as much. And it's just really just depending on what I would have liked to have done with this list. With this turn, though, I'm focusing on trying to get some of those earlier guys out with the Reflex Servitors. I'm going to keep 1 or 2 in the back just for control purposes for the flag. But after that, then my goal is to try to move those TEPs up, and then also to get the Galvanizers up in the front to really get them engaged as soon as possible. Just start wrecking havoc. I don't see myself being able to kill Exulon Thexus in the next few turns. I definitely think this game is either going to go to a scenario just because the amount of models that he has, or more likely because of the models I have not being as comfortable with the counter charge, since it's been a long time since I've played with this amount of counter charge. And then it's probably going to go to time as well. So with this now, so I'm activating the next TEP, moving him up. He's up kind of far, and with this I put 1 in each just to make sure I kind of hit everything. And I'm going to do 3 shots, try to remove a bunch of his models on this end. And really with that is because I didn't see myself getting close enough to taking out his beast. And I wasn't sure if his beast was going to get far enough up the table. I know he has some ways to increase their range. But I wanted to try to get as many of his models as possible in my TEP range so I can try to kill a bunch of those things. And now I'm just kind of going back and forth because I'm looking with this TEP that's closer to me. Really seeing what I can do. I'd really like to, like I said, try to kill that beast. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to focus my shots on him. I put 3 in the damage column, and I'm going to do 2 shots. So it's really just going to be it's going to be 5 dice worth of damage. It's going to be 2 shots. I'm not worried about hitting him. I shouldn't be worried about hitting him because I'm going to do a decent amount of damage to him. But unfortunately, with all of my damage rolls, I did not do what I thought I was going to. I thought I was going to be able to remove him, and I just didn't. I did only about half of his damage boxes, which is not what I thought I would do. I honestly thought I was going to be able to remove him. So next, just move my Corollary up so I can get him in range to start getting more models out for the focus. So, and then I'm just going to start an induction to try to start walking them up. Just to start getting them engaged. And all of them walk up except for the inverter he's going to run up.
Cephalyx turn 2. So legitimately, my opponent's dice were really bad for him. He did not get as much work as he was hoping for, nor did he get as much work as I was legitimately expecting. However, he's done something. He's actually done two things that I fully intend on taking advantage of in this scenario. One of which is I need to deal with the TEPs. I'd either lock them up or destroy them, because they, in addition to the Warcaster and his army, are the two things that are not going to be ever affected by Exulon's feat. And if I'm going to get scenario control through the feat, I need to make sure that those two elements, the two TEPs, are dealt with. Not to mention the fact that the TEPs are just going to run rampant with sprays through my army, so I need to deal with that. The bottom TEP, he's put out, and I think he was going for one of my monstrosities. He took some damage on some Drudges, but I don't think that was his end goal. I think he was actually trying to get to one of my monstrosities, because that's the only scoring element for his closer square zone. So it becomes a situation where I think he was hoping if he took out the monstrosity, then he wouldn't have to worry about me ever scoring on that back half of the table, and he could, for better luck for terms, kind of ignore it. And then the TEP is close enough that if he took out the wrecker, then it's too close to contesting the flag. Maybe I don't get any scoring on the flag or anything like that, and that just didn't turn out well for him. One of the things I am going to do is, because he didn't necessarily put a lot of saturation into that square zone, is I'm going to leverage the ambushing Min Slaver unit. This unit is priceless when it comes to these sort of expanded scenarios like Spread the Net, because I basically get to put them onto the table, and they immediately present a contesting element. It's a square zone, so they're never going to be able to score in it, but if I can prevent my opponent from ever scoring it, that's just as good for me. So I'm going to basically advance up. I'm putting some Drudges in more from a perspective of trying to get them out of the way, trying to block them up so that the TEP is not going to advance. Because again, if I can't destroy the TEPs, I want to lock them up so that they're not going to roam around and start spraying on Exulon or something like that. So we're going to put them in. I sack out, or I use the abilities for putting up Adrenal Flood on another. Use a Bender unit, put Adrenal Flood on a Slaver unit, so that the Slavers can go in and get some work done on the TEP. Ideally, what I was looking for is potentially being able to destroy the TEP with Adrenal Flooded Slavers and not having to commit my Wrecker, because just, as I mentioned, he's my only scoring opponent, or only scoring potential, though I have no major intentions to going to that square zone. If my opponent's not going to saturate that zone with many things and provide me an opportunity of potentially feeding to clear out the square space and then having my monstrosity there to score, I'm perfectly fine with taking that. But ideally, before I can ever leverage that, I got to get this TEP out of here, and he's advanced hard enough that I'm going to go after it. The other thing that I noticed is that at the top end, this square zone at the top didn't get much saturation as well. So if I use my Drudges to basically just meat shield run forward and jam him out of the square zone, then my monstrosity at the on my right side can kind of hide behind that obstruction. That building actually is going to play a pivotal part in a lot of my scenario play, because it's going to block line of sight for a lot of any counting charge threat. He won't be able to get the TP up to get after it, because I'm going to gum them up with just a sea of dudes. And also, all of my overlords have sprays that don't care about line of sight, so I could easily run overlords behind the building. They can still contribute to the game because they can literally spray through the building to get at things, and I can contest that flag, which is just to the left-hand side of what we're looking at of the building right now. So it allows me to contest his flag scoring potential with overlords while still allowing the overlords to contribute if anything should come in. Now, unfortunately, overlords don't provide much in this game because there's not a lot of dudes here. It's mostly the lights and the battle engines, which I can get some damage in, but I'm not going to get a lot. I'm not getting a lot of value. So I look at the overlords more as my contesting elements within this scenario, or just body blockers where I need to, using their defense to body block. My real scoring scenarios here are going to be my agitators on flags, and then my monstrosities on the square zones. Again, ignoring the central circle. So those are my key. Those are the important parts. Like, I have to hold on to those, and I think my opponent made that aware when he tried going after my my wrecker. So getting that TEP out of there saves my record at the bottom, and then using the building at the top saves my record at the top. And then I just gotta kind of play out the game for scoring. I've made it so that my opponent's not going to be able to get anything. I'm going to be able to get my ambushing slavers in. They're going to be able to kill the AGO, so he loses his arc node on that on the bottom side of the zone. And again, I'm just kind of going through the motions of what do I need to do to get this done. So I move Exulon up, mostly for the fact of I want to keep him central so I can leverage the feat when I'm ready to use it. In my opinion, Exulon's feat being more of a control feat is one where the longer I can hold on to it, the better off I am. So I'm not going to use it this turn, even though theoretically I could use it, shove everything out of the circle zone or near the circle zone, and then throw a unit in there to score. And I'm not ready to use it yet. I could, but I'm not ready to turn my feat into a single 1-point scenario. Whereas if I can set myself up so that I can leverage my feat to push not only things out of the square zone and the circle zone and off the flag and get 3 points out of it, that's a better use of my feat. So we removed the TEP, removed the AGO, so now that square zone's really starting to look clear. So I may have to reassess based on how the next turn works, if I'm going to start leveraging scoring in that his closest square box. Originally it wasn't my intent because it felt out of range, but if it works out that way, why not?
Alright, so my third turn pretty much happened exactly how I thought it was going to, where I was going to lose that TEP. That was pretty hard because not only losing that TEP, I also ended up not getting models close enough to that the flag there. But luckily with not getting close up to the flag, he still wasn't able to get anything on it. But the other zone in the back corner, that square, did not get anything in there, so he was able to get a point on it. To this point, me being down on control points is not good. I'm not very happy with myself because I have things that could have been close enough to that flag to start controlling on it. So I could have honestly still been tied with him for control points. So right now with the TEP, I've got to start prioritizing what I'm going to attack, as well as with all these inverters what I'm going to do. Because the inverters can do a lot, but he has a lot of his stuff spread out enough so it's going to be hard to get multiple attacks. Effectively, they're relatively cheap models, but I want to make sure that I can get them out to really start attacking. And also when to use my feat. Last turn could have been decent enough to use my feat. Really, there's not a lot of things that are going to do enough damage to me over the next couple turns where I'm as concerned about the speed, because he's already engaged a lot of my stuff. As well as kind of just everything else in there. So I'm just going to focus on trying to remove some of those models with the TEP because I think it's important to start getting stuff down. He does make a lot of tough rolls, which it's good for him that, that those toughs do exist, because that does kind of hinder a lot of models I could be destroying. So with this, I do put, I believe, all 5 of my shots in the back there for, all 3 of my things in the back there for 5 shots, just so I could really start laying waste to all of the units over there. Again, with his beast with me not getting up there, I'm gonna potentially not get a point there if I cannot get a model far enough up into that zone to start contesting it as well as making sure that the thing survives. So I really do need to get possibly multiple things up there in order to survive that. Now, part of this, I will say, it's just been a lack of playing. This is the second game I played with in a year, and Axe is probably my favorite caster, but I haven't played him at all in Mark III. So this is a little bit of a challenge, kind of getting used to remembering a lot of his things. Even though, it's still the Convergence army, playing between Axe is a really heavy jack list compared to LeConte, which I can kind of deal with a lot more of a punishment. It's just a different mindset, a different game. That's one of the things I like about Convergence so much, is every caster, you really play a significantly different game with your models. You have the exact same list, and just depending on what caster you play, it's completely different, just because it changes their mat, it changes their rat. You have obviously different spells, and with just the feat, and even the just the Jack Marshal, well, not Jack Marshal, I'm sorry, with the natural ability that they give to Jacks, which LeConte, he gives Shield Guard. And then with Axis, he actually gives them all counter charge. So it's just different plays you want to do. You want to make sure that in Axis you have certain jacks that are forward enough to be able to destroy things, but also you have them layered in about 2 to 3 different rows, so they have the ability to counter charge other models and try to stop your opponents from getting an edge up on you by stopping key models from being able to charge. So really with my galvanizers, they're kind of just charging forward, killing models whenever I can. My goal is to try to start clearing out the center zone. If I can clear out enough of the models there, I think I can actually control it this turn, because he doesn't have any beasts in there. So it's going to help me out. It's just going to be removing a lot of those models. And then the squares goes to me. It's just keeping at least 2 jacks in there, so I can hold that zone in order to contest it. With just the 1 in there, I'm positive he could remove at least 1 jack, but it's going to be removing multiple jacks is going to be the challenge for him. So that's what I'm going to try to do, is just make sure that he does not remove those jacks. And really, it's just one of the hard things with this list also is making sure what galvanizer activated during what time. So kind of just as I'm doing that, just making sure, hey, did I activate this one? Did I activate this one successfully? So that they're all going through and really just making sure that my stuff's good. Unfortunately, I did not get those last 2 models out. If I could have destroyed those 2 models, I would have been able to at least gain 1 point. But I just put down the wall. I'm just moving up the last couple of one of my jacks so I can get as much stuff into the zone as soon as possible. As I'm just, obviously I'm removing some more models, but it's really my turn.
Cephalyx, turn 3. So we again go into a scenario of, my opponent has not necessarily saturated much into the zone, in part because I jammed him on the top zones, but on the bottom zone he hasn't necessarily put a lot there either. He has managed to kill a decent amount of the Drudges. He's got somebody on his flag now, scoring on his flag, so our 2 flags are kind of contesting each other, if you will, when it comes to scoring. But I see an opportunity here to potentially leverage my feet and get me multiple scoring points and get me up. I don't think I'm going to be able to get as much as I need. I won't be able to get the full 4 that I need to win right now, but I'll be able to put such a heavy level on him of CPs that he's going to have to start taking drastic measures in order to recover from that, and that's really where he's going to expose himself. So some of the things I'm looking at is there's currently a Galvanizer in the square zone at the bottom of the screen that is directly across from my Wrecker. So if the Wrecker can charge in, beat that Galvanizer up, I can actually score in that square zone. The only thing I have to deal with is the Galvanizer that's just at the top of that square zone in the corner tip. So I kind of play around with some of the things that I'm doing, and I decide that I'm going to actually use his counter charge to my advantage. Arguably, I'm going to spend a lot of time on this turn, and I probably shouldn't have, because I spent a lot of time in my last turn. And this is something that I continue to struggle with when trying to deal with opponents who have lots of counter charge in their list. Because you spend so much time trying to make sure your movement and your actions are precision, that you don't trigger counter charges you don't want to, you just consume so much of your clock. I tend to actually look at my Exulon list as a potential clocking list, because there's so many models with tough that a lot of times my opponent struggles trying to deal with it all. But at the flip side, I'm getting in return where now he's got things where I can't deal with it all at this time. So one of the things I'm tracking down is, if you haven't noticed, the arms have changed. PolarBearCub had to step away, so Gaston has stepped in and is playing the round out for him. I'm going to start advancing some of my Drudges in hopes that I can get that one that's tipping the zone to countercharge out. And that's actually what ends up happening here, is that he countercharges out, and I'm like, cool, I'm good to go. I've got it set up. And then across from the table, I hear Gaston going, oh, crap. And I'm like, he recognized what I just did. So I start moving some things around. Here's where I'm checking out my range, checking out the Wrecker, trying to see if I'm going to be able to get that charge off. The 2-inch reach, I have the distance I need to, and still within the bubble, the agitate bubble of my agitator, who is going to be sitting on the flag. So I turn around and move him up. I do the agitate bubble. I move up an overlord's unit to fuel up the wrecker to get everything started. And here's where I start doing things that I shouldn't. And this is, I go completely clock blind to my round, which is something that I shouldn't do. As low as I am on the clock, I should only be moving and doing things that I need to. And here's where I screw up. I advance in because I don't know my reasons. I really legitimately don't. But it's within 3 inches of the edge of the forest, which allows him to activate another Galvanizer countercharge with no intentions of actually getting the Galvanizer in to do damage to what just moved. He literally was just moving the Galvanizer in to contest that zone again. So I contemplated using my feet in order to pull that Galvanizer out, and then I remember that I've got TK, and I can use my wreckers as arc nodes, so why use that? Save the feet. So I put my Oklahoma widget down, the one that you just saw, to measure out the 2-inch range, but I'm also using the 5-inch length of it to see if I'm going to be able to, once I get to that point, A, have line of sight to that guy, and have the distance in order to TK. So the wrecker goes in, he's fully fueled, he was within the agitate bubble. I believe he was in the agitate bubble at the start, but then he lost it after the first beatback, which is fine. I'll just use the other focus to boost where I need to. And he ends up actually crushing out that Galvanizer. But the key thing of that beatback move was actually the fact of it brought him up that 1 more inch needed in order for Exulon to arc node through the wrecker in order to see the other one. Had I not had the beatback, I would not have had the distance necessary to get line of sight past that sliver of the woods, because now eyeless sight does not allow you to see through woods. So I would need a drag line. So I finally get up, Exulon activates, and instead of feeding, I TK, so that way I can save my feet for another turn. I'd love to be able to run my Drudges right now to completely screen out, body block my wrecker from getting charged, but there's this like razor wall thing in the way, so unfortunately I'm just able to kind of dosel around and not necessarily do much else in there. So now I've got a monstrosity in the zone, I'm scoring there, I've got my flag, I'm scoring there, and then I've got my wrecker still at the top, hiding behind a building. It's kind of weird, you know, you got this wrecker who really wants to get some work done and kill that TB, but he's my only scoring element, so I have to keep him there. The other thing that I did was I planned for a potential next turn contesting my opponent's flag by running my agitator up there behind the building. So basically like this solo little Cephalyx that's hiding behind the building, desperately hoping my opponent forgets he's back there. So then I turn around and I go through, and here, this is another scenario where I'm going clock blind. I have no reason for making these attacks. I'm just trying to block up Exulon to make sure he doesn't get attacked, and I don't need this damage, but I'm wasting clock doing it.
Alright, so turn 4 was pretty brutal. He's up 5 control points. I only have 1. So a couple things I need to do is I really need to get more aggressive with the zone. As you can tell, there's also a couple of different hands that were going in and out. My daughter was streaming at the time, so both Gaston and also everybody else, they were just really awesome with just helping me out. So they were not playing my game, but they were moving the models. I was telling them what to do. So that was extremely helpful. So thank you guys very much for that. So anyways, I am down a lot of points, and this is a highly aggressive scenario. I did not take proper care of what was going on. So in all honesty, me being down 4 points, I have a hard sell to get back up to be able to take care of this. Also, not to mention, because I'm not used to all the countercharging and not used to this army at all, I am a lot lower on time. The good news is so is my opponent, because he has so many models, and I really didn't kill as many, I think, as he expected throughout this entire list. He only has maybe 2 or 3 minutes left. So what I'm going to try to do with this turn is really just focus on trying to get models in a position to hold zones down. Score, I really need to score at least 1. I would like to score 2. If I can score 2 zones, then I can go up to 3. And if I can contest the rest, then he's going to have to figure out a way to make 3 points. So that's really what that's going to be about, is what can I do in order to get that done. So right now I'm just kind of looking through, hey, what models do I have going up? Where can I run models into? Because I didn't move my one Galvanizer far enough back to where I could have had two Galvanizers contesting, which I really should have done. That was a very down move on my part last round. So yeah. So the interesting thing also about this is that we're stuck at 7 turns. So it changes a lot of what I would do during a normal turn, because honestly I would try to run models into place, but it would probably be less effective with the 7 rounds. Because there is exactly 7 rounds, that does make it a lot more challenging to make sure that, one, I'm making smart turns, but also they're very effective because I do have a limited amount. Because at the end, if we get to 7, there's a really good chance he's going to win if I don't do enough to destroy everything, control enough stuff. So you can see right there, I was attacking his beast. I need to do 3 more damage, which the one Galvanizer that's in the woods, I didn't have the line of sight to go see him, and I don't think I have the line of sight to go get anything else. So it's really frustrating for that set that I cannot just go kill it. Right now, as you can see, though, I've cleared the middle zone, so at least I've got one control point right there. So that makes me really happy. Now I just need to move things up to try to keep things away from getting into that zone, because I want to try to make sure if I can potentially score points there. Oh, excuse me. The other thing I'm going to look at doing is right where that DTEP is, I'm going to drop 2 of the pods right there so I can contest that as well. He has nothing close enough to there with those pods. They are solo, so they should be able to score on those flags, so that'll at least give me 2 points. So that bumps me up to 3. Right now, I still do not have anything that's going to contest that far zone on the corner there. So if I don't get something in there, he's at least going to get 1 point there. And I really should try to be getting 2 models on there. I have a lot of models on that center zone. I need to try to get at least one more thing in there to contest that, so he doesn't have to kill it. And then also worry about that back zone there, because my goal is really to try to block him out of scenario. No, that's the goal. Just letting you guys know, what actually happens is I make a lot of stupid choices during this. And really, it's just the inexperience to not really get as much gameplay as I should have. So I don't get as aggressive with my models. I really should have put more stuff in there. There's the inverter, which I do get him up there. So he will be able to do some stuff. But I kind of put my models close enough to where his beast jack monstrosity thing, it can charge in and it can do some damage. But I do get 3 models up there, so I'm pretty happy with that. But I still don't have anything contesting the flag up in the corner, which he's able to capitalize on. He's going to get tons of points for that. And then I end up activating Axis. I put again one of the walls down there, try to stop more of those models charging. And then I'm really just, that's kind of where I messed up, is that I don't get enough stuff around to, not just to contest, but also to take care of those zones. At least I've contested all the zones for this turn, but it's really just looking for that, what's that next turn advance. I was so focused on the clock that I didn't successfully do that.
Cephalyx, turn 4. So I'm super low on clock, but the game is not lost. All I need to do is stay on my flag, score on my flag, and beat up that top level, beat up that Galvanizers in the zone, and I win by the +5 points. So I run my agitator that's at the very tippy top is going to basically run around to contest to make sure that my opponent isn't going to score. That's a simple move. Exulon is going to hand over some focus. So here I go. I run the agitator over. He's contesting. Now I just need to make sure I need to do whatever I need to in order to make sure that that wrecker is able to do what he needs to in order to wreck that zone. Legitimately, these are wasted attacks. There's no reason for this beyond I'm blocking these things up to make sure they don't get Exulon if this doesn't work. Then I go over to the wrecker. I managed to hit the Galvanizer with the wrecker. This Galvanizer only has a couple points on it, but the clock goes right after the hit. I don't get the damage roll, and I death clock myself. So after this game was over with, it really boils down to, this was my game to lose. I had a scenario presence. The game was slanted to me for scenario. I wasn't necessarily advantaged in the list, but I was advantaged in the specific scenario that Exulon really excels at spread the net. It's one of the few scenarios where I'm confident I can win merely just by the fact that I'm playing Exulon, because of how the list is set up and how much control he puts onto the table. That being said, wasting time on attacks that weren't needed. All I needed to do was run models in the way to body block. Wasting time just trying to minimize my opponent's countercharge potential. Wasted my clock. These things is what cost me the game. As you saw, I hit and I was dice +2, I think, maybe. I would have wrecked the last few boxes in a single dice roll. I was literal seconds away from winning the game when my clock went out, and that is merely because I did not manage my clock properly.